Good morning, everybody. I think I'm on time today. Welcome to our daily Gospel of Mark. Oh, my dog's just realised I'm in the room. Morning, Mozzie. Nice to see you. I'm going to read you our chapter today our verses today because I want to and I can. So we are in Mark 14. Oh, now I've looked at it. It's quite long. Maybe I won't read it to you. So yeah, I won't read it to you, but you can read it yourself. It's from it's Mark 14, verses 53 all the way across to 65. And in my Bible it's headed Jesus before. I should get the rest of my head in. Jesus before the Sanhedrin. There's some interesting kind of things going on here. Obviously, we heard about Jesus being arrested last night, so we know this is happening in the nighttime, which is not normal. They weren't normally trying people to death in one night. It's not what they were supposed to be doing. Morning, Nick. Nice to see you. Not that I can see you every day. So it's not normal for them to be trying Jesus at nighttime. That's not how they would normally do it. We can't even say, oh, look, contextually, and that would have been okay. It wasn't. It just wasn't a normal way to do things. It wasn't a fair way to do things. It was unfair, it was unjust, it was against their own laws, but they did it anyway because that's how much they wanted to catch Jesus out. And the Sanhedrin, hopefully my husband's not listening because he'll tell me I'm boring. The Sanhedrin, there were like three different types of the Sanhedrin. There were a group of three of them, which were the two high priests and this other guy. And then there was three groups of 23. And one of those groups of 23 is what was usually used to try people to death. You didn't normally need all of them. So it's interesting in this chapter that they actually use all what would be 71, I think. 3 times 23 plus 3 is 71 of the Sanhedrin. That's a lot of people to get up in the night just to try one man. But that's how much they wanted to catch Jesus out. 71 people, that's how much. Oh, my husband is listening. Sorry, boring you. So they've got their 71 people out to try him, and they take him to this high priest. Mark's gospel doesn't tell us the name of the high priest. Some of the other gospels do. Some of the other gospels actually tell us that they took him to two different high priests, because basically the corruption was so thick in their politics and their own laws that they had two going on at the moment because they couldn't agree between themselves and the Romans as to who should be high priest. So it all isn't very good. It's not right. It's not fair. And that's something that I think I only realised quite recently. Often we talk about Jesus going to the cross and Jesus dying, and we kind of think of it as this kind of lovely voluntary act of Jesus kind of doing some sort of, like theological suicide, I guess. But that's not the case. Like, he was unfairly tried, unjustly treated. Later in this chunk that we read, he's beaten and spat on. It wasn't fair what happened to Jesus, and it wasn't nice. And although he knew it would happen, and although he wanted it to happen because he wants the end result, Borodar, Wayne. I've probably said that in the worst Welsh accent ever. You can all have a giggle. It was, yeah. So what I'm trying to say is it wasn't fair, it wasn't just. But anyway, there are two kind of key points I want to pick up on from this passage now that I've rambled on for ages about the unfairness of the Sanhedrin. The first one is for my Christian listeners, because I know you're out there. In fact, all three of you that have said good morning to me are Christian, and so far there's only 3 viewers, so it's you three. That very first bit where it talks about Peter. Now, I love Peter. I think he's got a great character arc through the whole of the Bible. So I love him, but the first few verses talks about Jesus being led to the high priest, and then it says, Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. There he sat with the guards and warmed himself at the fire. How nice is that? Warming yourself by the fire. Who doesn't love sitting by the fire? I love sitting by the fire. I love being warm. Peter made himself comfortable. Yeah, he followed Jesus. Yeah, sort of, just about, at a distance, where it was comfortable, by the fire. But he's not there with him when he's being spat on, when he's being beaten, when he's being tried by 71 Sanhedrin. He's sitting by the fire, where it's warm, where it's safe. And sometimes I think we opt to do that as Christians. We choose the fire, the warmth, the safety. and Jesus is calling us into the trial where he's being spat on and beaten. So my challenge for my Christian listeners is don't be Peter, don't sit by the fire, don't follow Jesus at a distance, follow him wholeheartedly, follow him as close as you can, and follow him into the trial. And then for those of you who aren't sure yet if you are Christians, if you believe what we're telling you, those of you who maybe have never heard about Jesus before, I think I mentioned a couple of, probably weeks ago now, that in the Gospel of Mark there are lots of times where people say that Jesus is Messiah, or people will ask each other, who is Jesus? Or Jesus even asks other people, who do you say I am? But he never says who he is until this point. And the chief priest is trying to, or the high priest, they're trying to get witnesses to stack up against Jesus, and nobody's agreeing. And because of the Old Testament law, you had to have at least 2 people who agreed before you could try someone to death, and they just can't get it. Nobody can agree on what they want to say about Jesus. So eventually the high priest says to Jesus, well, who are you? Like, are you the Messiah? And it's at this point that Jesus says, yes, I am. And for those of you who know anything about the Old Testament, that will remind you of the story of Moses and the plagues and Egypt, where God says, I am. It's the same original words. Jesus is saying, I am, and the people around him would have understood what he was saying. In fact, I think it says the high priest, at the bottom of my page, the high priest tore his clothes. That is how upset he was when you tore your clothes. That was kind of grief, that was mourning. He was absolutely distraught that Jesus would claim to be God. But that's what Jesus claims to be. And if you want to call yourself a Christian, then that's the claim that you have to make too. Not that you're God, but that Jesus is God. We talk about confessing our faith, and to confess something is just to repeat it, to say it again. Jesus already says, I am. And then he says, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. And all of that is language that they would have understood then. But basically he's saying, I am the Messiah. I am here to save my people. And if you want to be saved along with Jesus, then you have to claim that too, that he is the Messiah. And I guess I won't spoil what's to come in terms of the rest of the trial and what happens to Jesus if you don't already know. But you're going to want to be standing with him because he's pretty cool. And the rest of the story is pretty awesome. But at this point, I guess we leave Jesus being beaten and spat on and treated unfairly, and Peter warming his butt by the fire. So I wonder where you are. I wonder if you're by the fire, or if you're spitting on him, or if actually you're standing with him in the trial. I don't know.